lilies have been gathered up and are set aside for planting later. The earless chocolate bunny, if there's any of it left, is still sitting in its messy wrapper. The hard-boiled eggs have been deviled and long since consumed, possibly.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So now what? How is your life different this week after you've experienced Jesus' resurrection, rebirth, renewal? How's your life changed? Or did it make not a squat? It's worth the difference.
Because Jesus calls us to change, and then he gives us a pattern for how our lives should be lived. The pattern looks something like this: old life, death, new life. That's the pattern that Jesus gives us all the time. Jesus never asked us to worship him or admire him. Jesus invites and commands us to follow him. I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's what he said. Follow me. That's what he said, and I think he meant it. That's what he said. Follow me. Do what I do. Say what I say. For the next couple of months, we're going to be looking at times when Jesus said, follow me. The red letters in the Bible, in the New Testament. The times when Jesus said, follow me. Well, appropriately enough, the first time Jesus said, follow me, was to his disciples as he gathered them. Because disciple is the Greek word for follower. Discipline is the Greek word for following. Brings new meaning to the book of discipline, doesn't it? Discipline is simply good following and ways that we can follow more closely. And disciple, what we're all called to be, or as the video said, this is discipling, which is the church's mission, is to follow Jesus. So the first time he used it was when he called his disciples, his followers. So let's listen in. I'll be in Matthew chapter 4. Walking along the beach of Lake Galilee, Jesus saw two brothers, Simon, later called Peter, and Andrew. They were fishing, throwing their nets into the lake. It was their regular work. Jesus said to them, "Come with me. I'll make a new kind of fisherman out of you. I'll show you how to catch men and women instead of perch and bass." They didn't ask questions. They simply dropped their nets and followed. A short distance down the beach, they came upon another pair of brothers, James and John, Zebedee's sons. These two were sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, mending their fish nets. And Jesus made the same offer to them. And they were just as quick to follow, abandoning boat and father.
Did you ever wonder why 12? Jesus planned that. I think there's 12 tribes of Israel, so I need 12 disciples. And if I take 2 from here and 2 from here, we don't know. We can only make an educated guess. But these 12 were to lay the foundation for the kingdom. Right? Any good leader has to gather people to be part of the group that's going to lay the foundation and spread the word so that the group as a whole can accomplish its goal, which was to disciple the world, to tell the good news everywhere. So these 12 are called, and these first 4 are called while working. Doing their everyday work. They're fishermen. They're not scholars, they're not priests, they're not wealthy, they're not influential. They have a small business. And they're working hard at making a living. A living. That's, money to pay the bills. That's making a living. Okay. Jesus comes up. They have seen Jesus. These were initially followers of probably John the Baptist. So they have been in that world. And this is a very small geographic area. They've heard of Jesus. They might have even heard him speak. But he probably never spoke to them. Or if he did, kind of like when you turn on the TV. Everybody's speaking to you. But I don't know how much you're actually hearing. They're doing their work, and Jesus comes up and talks to them one-on-one. And all of a sudden, they actually heard what he said. They heard it with their heart and their head. And they were all in. Scripture says they just dropped everything and went. They didn't stop to analyze.
Analysis paralysis.
What if we do go with this guy? Who will take care of this? They didn't ask Jesus for a business plan. How do you plan to accomplish this? They just left. Abandoned. Stan and I had a conversation about abandon versus surrender. And kind of the same, but not exactly. They surrendered their lifestyle, perhaps they gave it up, but they abandoned it also. They just walked away and followed. So the question, maybe, is for us, what do we need to abandon or surrender in order to really follow?
Big hint, you don't have to quit your job.
Darn. Some of them say darn.
Because it's not about your vocation or what you're doing. It's about following Jesus, wherever Jesus leads you. And Jesus can lead you, one of the more famous persons that was a Jesus follower is Brother Lawrence. He wrote a little book called The Presence of God. And it's all about Brother Lawrence met Jesus every day in the kitchen. He was a dishwasher. And that's where he met Jesus. You can meet Jesus in any and every occupation. Jesus doesn't call you to be one of the 12, give up everything and follow him. He did these 12 individuals. He expects us to follow him in whatever we're already doing. You'll know if Jesus wants you to change jobs. Trust me on this. I've retired 3 times so far. You'll know. And if Jesus does, go. Instead of making a living, make a life.
These 12 representative of all of us. They are all different. They all have different jobs. They all have different gifts. They all have different personalities. They represent all of us. Luke tells the story just a little bit differently, a little more detailed.
That's why we got 4 of them, the gospel.
Once when he was standing on the shore of Lake Galilee, this is Luke 5, 1 through 9, the crowd was pushing in on him to better hear the word of God. He noticed 2 boats tied up. The fishermen had just left them and were out scrubbing their nets. He climbed into the boat that was Simon's and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Sitting there, using the boat for a pulpit, he taught the crowd. When he finished teaching, he said to Simon, "Push out into the deep water and let your nets out for a catch." Simon said, "Master, we've been fishing here all night and haven't even caught a minnow."
And you're going to tell me what
"I'm a fisherman. You're the wandering, homeless preacher. Come on. I've fished all night. I'm tired." "But if you say so, I'll let out the nets." It was no sooner said than done. A huge haul of fish, straining the nets past capacity. They waved to their partners in the other boat to come help them. They filled both nets and both boats, nearly swamping them with the catch. Simon Peter, when he saw it, fell to his knees before Jesus. "Master, leave. I am a sinner and can't handle this holiness. Leave me to myself." When they pulled in that catch of fish, awe overwhelmed Simon and everyone with him. It was the same with James and John, the sons of Zebedee, co-workers with Simon.
You see, following Jesus is how we discover our own unique place in God's plan. Each and every one of us has a place. And we all pretty much spend our life figuring out where that is. And God works through us. And we're the only ones who can fit that piece of the puzzle in God's plan. Each of us is given a unique part. That's a calling. That's our calling. It's not our job or our vocation. It's our calling. You see, life with Jesus is about the who, not the what. Christianity is the only religion in the world that's based on a person. Not on a doctrine, not on an idea, not on a lifestyle. Christianity is based on a person. Not following Jesus, you're missing the boat with Christianity. Because it's based on following Jesus. Jesus is the who. And Jesus calls us continuously. It's not a one and done. It doesn't work that way. It's constant. You see, there's no perfect place and there's no perfect time for God to make a mess out of your life. Because trust me, when you start following Jesus, it's going to mess up. Remember I said? Old life, death of old life, new life. It's going to make a mess of the old life. It'll never be the same. Changes everything. Everything. It's all about change. Jesus called us to be in the world, but not of the world. Your old worldly life is gone. You have to change. There's no tweaking here. Okay? You can't be tweaked. It's not, I'll adjust this part of my life and it'll be all better. This is God's extreme makeover. You will never, ever be the same when you truly decide to follow Jesus. When you actually, as they did, hear Jesus say, follow me. To you, by name. You will never be the same. If you don't experience change, then you haven't heard. You need to listen better. Some of us need a significant emotional event to open our ears. Moses needed a burning bush. Apparently, Peter needed an extreme haul of fish. Saul, later Paul, needed to be knocked down and blinded. Stan needed to be forced to retire from the Coast Guard. There are significant emotional events. We all have them. Whether it's an illness, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a wedding, whether it's changing jobs, whether it's moving someplace. Those are what I learned in the Coast Guard were called significant emotional events. And if you don't have those, you don't change. But it comes in every form. Remember, Isaiah's significant emotional event was the whisper of God. Wasn't in the earthquake, wasn't in the fire, wasn't in the wind, and then God whispered and scared the heck out of him. That was his significant emotional event. It's how God gets our attention. Because we tend to go through life trying to ignore that person tapping on our shoulder. And one thing that we all have in common, whatever the event is, when the event happens, we all have to surrender ourselves. Happened to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, didn't it? I don't really want to go through this, God, but your will, not mine.
So what is
why
it?
would we do this?
I don't know. What is it about Jesus, this, once again, homeless, wandering, radical, countercultural preacher that is appealing to even the 12? Really? There's something about Jesus.
I think that's a song.
He's offering something. New life. They sense that there is more to their existence than making a living. Somehow they sense that Jesus offers new life, a new way of being. And they can't get rid of it. They rise to the challenge. They already have a job, but they don't maybe have a purpose. Is there anyone here who does not want to lead a meaningful life? Everyone wants to lead a meaningful life. Everyone wants to make a dent in the universe. Everyone wants to have made a difference, no matter how small. Jesus offers the disciples this opportunity. And they rise to the challenge. Okay. They don't know where Jesus is leading. All but one died crucified. They didn't know that. They didn't know what was going to happen, where it was going to happen, what they were going to have to do. But they'd heard this man, and maybe they'd heard of his healings. They heard of his love. They heard that he was different. And when he actually spoke their name, their heart opened to a challenge. He repurposed their life. They knew how to fish. They were going to continue to fish for people. They were going to follow Jesus and reach people, have new purpose, have new life. And each one of them would do it differently. If you're here on earth, you're here for a reason. I knew you when you were still in the womb. I called your name. You are mine. You are here for a purpose. Jesus repurposed the fishermen, and he will repurpose us. We drop our nets and follow.